Hi guys, welcome, and if you're new here, my name is Elaine, and on my channel I talk about bags from mid-range to vintage luxury. So today I'm going to be talking about a new to me brand called Dragon Diffusion. And I know it's not new to YouTube. I feel like there's quite a few creators out there who have already reviewed Dragon Diffusion, but I think one of the things when I watch the reviews is I always wonder, how does that compare to another brand that's famous for its leather weaving, which is Bottega. So I do have two Bottega bags to compare it with. So this is the Mini Wallace. This is a newer style that I purchased last year in 2025. And then I also have a vintage one here. I'm not sure what the year is. I had to figure out how to look up those tags and stuff. But this is the famous Veneta Hobo in a really nice seafoam green. So without further ado, I'm gonna just do, a comparison of the bags, of the brands, and what I like about each. And if I could just choose one, which one would I choose? So let's get started. So first off, this is Dragon Diffusion's Roseanna bag. So it is a shoulder bag. It does fit over my shoulder. I'll list the strap drop here, but as you can see, it's very comfortable. There's enough clearance that I could probably wear a sweater. I'm not too sure about thick coat, maybe a thick coat, but it's actually fairly generous and fairly comfortable. So it's a good shoulder bag. It fits all the essentials, which I can show you in a little bit. And then it's this beautiful emerald color, which is I think one of their classic color lines. I got this one off of Farfetch. I saw it on some other websites, and I think for Farfetch it was maybe like $430. $440 all in, which is a pretty good price. That included the tariffs. I thought that was a pretty good deal. Off the bat, I would say quality is good, well made. Would I say, is it as good as Bottega? No. So, Dragon Diffusion is much more of an artisanal line. I think all of these are hand woven in India. And the type of leather they use, it's a stiffer leather. It's gonna hold its structure better. There's no inner lining. And as you can see, there's also no clasp. There is a St. Christopher medallion, which I guess is their signature logo. Oh no, actually there is a tag on this side. Very Coach-like, where they have a debossed Dragon Diffusion tag. It says this bag is made with respect for hand weaving and leathercraft tradition. We try to sustain this pure handcraft. Enjoy and travel with this bag. May God protect you. Handmade in India, 100% leather. And with the St. Christopher medallion, it's a very Christian bag, very Catholic bag, I guess, which is interesting because it's made in India, but that's neither here nor there. Anyways, so yeah, the leather itself is quite stiff. So I don't know if you can tell, but when I squeeze this, it's very pliable, very malleable. This, on the other hand, is, more rigid, which I think is great for holding its structure without having to add any further structural pieces to the bag. Like, as you can see, this one has this leather strip on the bottom. There's definitely some kind of, I think, base or internal structure that's kind of giving this very soft leather its shape, versus this one, it's just from the stiff leather and the weave. Overall, I would say the weave is fairly nice and fairly uniform. There's only a bit here on this side where I can see some puckering, where it's probably pulled a little too tight. Where's the puckering? Oh, right here, like where there's an overlap right there. Otherwise, everything is fairly uniform, or maybe the leather piece was just a little too thick. Each leather strip also has some variation, whether it's some cracking or some wrinkles in the hide, which I actually kind of like for an artisanal, like bohemian style bag. It makes each bag unique, but it's not sort of the uniform look of a Bottega bag. In general, I would say the Bottega styles are a little bit more refined. They have a zipper, a closure, and some lining. Inside here, I do have it stuffed. So in here, this Mini Wallace or Wallace bag that I have reviewed in the past. If you're interested, you can check it out for a full review. But it does have a leather lining. And yeah, there's definitely got to be some sort of base here that's keeping the internal structure. Smell-wise, I forgot to mention that when I smell this, it's not It's not a leather smell. It smells like processed leather, sort of. I don't know how to explain it, but sort of like when you have those boho sandals sometimes, and then they're made of this kind of stiff leather, kind of smells like that. It's just, yeah, it just doesn't smell like leather versus, of course, Bottega does smell like leather. I mean, this is almost a year old and it still smells like leather when I go up close, which is really nice. And of course it has feet, it has things that you would expect a luxury bag to have. But of course this was, I think it was like, was it 2,300? I think just over 2,000. But I also did buy this in Hawaii, and Hawaii has a Hawaii price for a lot of these Kering and LVMH brands. So it was a little bit less. In terms of quality of this bag, I did go over it in that review as well, but it's not like the best. So over here, there's some, I wouldn't say puckering, but yeah, there's some lifted edges that I think if I were to use this constantly, these lifted edges will start fraying. The leather itself is quite thin, and I think quality-wise, it's so-so. In terms of Bottega's line of bags, you know, the Wallace is on the cheap end. It's a smaller bag. It's not one of those, I forget what they call it, but like legacy heritage bags. So they have bags now at Bottega where you can bring it back and they're going to fix it up for you. It has a lifetime guarantee basically. So those are like the Cabas, the Andiamos. I think basically any bag that's over sort of like the $5,000 mark. So unfortunately, this bag does not qualify. And in my opinion, I feel like because it's sort of on the lower end, even the leather used for their lower end bags are not going to be as nice as the leathers they use for the higher end bags. You know, but construction's decent. I should also mention that the weaving style is a little bit different. So for Bottega, and I don't know if you can see here, but they will cut slits into one piece and then thread the strip through. So it's not actually two separate pieces, strips of leather that are woven together, which is what this is like. This is, you know, two strips woven together, tight enough so that there's no gaps. Here it's slits of leather in a main panel and then they weave one strip through. I think by doing it that way, there's less chances for there to be air gaps. For the Dragon Diffusion one, you have to kind of pull it tight, make sure there's no gaps. Then I did also want to mention, so this is the vintage Bottega. Again, you know, it's a one main sheet of leather with a strip woven through. And so even though they are woven the same way, as you can see, the actual size of the weave and the material used is a little bit different. So vintage Bottegas actually are really soft. They use sort of like a Napa leather and it's just really comfortable. I kind of like the bigger weave look compared to the smaller weave, which is more of a vintage style. But in terms of just hand feel, you can't really beat the hand feel of a vintage Bottega. Yeah. This one, like I can feel the edges and like ridges, and this just feels softer. I don't feel any of the edges. When it comes to Bottega, I personally prefer the vintage version. Also, you know, vintage is a little bit cheaper, you know, on the secondhand market. I think I got this one for a really good price. I mean, this one has a ton of fading and it just doesn't look as pristine. So I think I got it for around, I think I got it for around 500 or less, which actually makes it fairly close in price to the Dragon Diffusion one. But of course, you know, Dragon Diffusion's brand new, Bottega is not new. I did have to do leather conditioner on this. So I did leather CPR, which worked really well, didn't discolor it. And I think it did help moisturize the leather so it's a little bit more pliable again. When I first got it, it was definitely on the dry side. And I gotta say, vintage ones will have a little bit more variation when it comes to the strips. It might just be certain strips of leather aged more than others, or I don't know what they used. But if you want like a very homogeneous, uniform look, then a modern Bottega would definitely fit the bill. As much as I like this is definitely more of a casual sort of summer bag. Throw it over my shoulder with like a t-shirt on, and because there's no closure or zipper of any type, I definitely would only be wearing it when more of a safe area, like not in a city. Of course, granted, like as you put it over your shoulder, you can close it with your elbow, you can keep it shut, but if you were to drop it, things will fall out. So yeah, my favorite of the bunch is definitely the vintage Bottega. And actually on my wish list is another one, a Veneta Hobo, a vintage one in a different color. As much as I like this seafoam green, it's super unique. I mean, originally I had wanted a brown, but I feel like I have too many brown bags, so I kind of want a blue. If money was no object and closet space was no object, I totally would get a collection of the Veneta Hobos in a rainbow. I think it would be really fun. They're very useful bags. This has actually been on a couple of my most used lists. It's like my spring summer bag. And then I actually wanted to talk about, and if you've been watching so far, I would greatly appreciate a like or subscribe, especially if you've seen one of my other videos in the past. It really helps to support my channel. Thank you. My last bag in my collection that does have some sort of weaving is this Balenciaga first bag. Also vintage. I got this off of Brandier. And I mean, overall, this is a beautiful bag. It's in really good condition. You can just look at these handles. They're pristine. But I have to say, Balenciaga isn't a company that's known for their leather weaving. Like, I'm sure this was sort of just a one-off in a certain season. So it's not like something that they do constantly. So I do notice that at the bottom here, you can see the edges are lifting. For a bag that's not been used all that much, you know, it hasn't been used and abused. It's been very lovingly taken care of. The fact that this bottom part here is already lifting and, you know, starting to look a little weird, more so in the front than in the back, just means they're weaving it, but it's not like done in a sort of way that prevents the lifting. Versus, of course, Bottega won't have that because, one, you know, they're a luxury company known for their weaving, but two, the way they weave it is, you know, because they have that sheet of leather and then the strips, it's less likely for one edge of the strip to kind of like lift up like that, I think. But, you know, it's a testament to Dragon Diffusion that this whole bottom part's woven, and one, I think the leather's stiff enough that it's not gonna, the edges won't just be starting to like flip up. But I think they are professional leather weavers and they know what they're doing. But of course, if it does start to lift, I will report back here. I've only used this bag a handful of times, like maybe like 4 or 5 times. Last but not least, let's see what fits in there and how much this thing weighs. So currently I am using my Wu Hei Bespoke bucket bag. So let's start off with sunglasses, wallet, mount pouch, lip balm, hand sanitizer, and sunscreen. And so, you know, just the essentials, very easy, fits everything. And then if I were to put in a water bottle, also fits right on top. So yeah, you know, it's a compact bag, but it can still fit quite a bit. Shoulder wise, I have no problems with it falling off my shoulder. I think one, this shoulder strap is again, a woven strap. So it kind of, you know, the texture helps kind of grip, I feel like, you know, whatever clothes you're wearing, and it's less likely to fall off. Yeah, I've never had an issue with this one. Now let's weigh it. Okay, empty again, and let's weigh it. So it weighs 9 ounces. Is very light. Honestly, it's gonna be much lighter than a Bottega bag. All right, so I think that's it. If you have any questions, please pop them down below. Would I purchase another Dragon Diffusion bag? Yeah, I wouldn't rule it out. I think they are well-made bags. I think if you're not gonna buy new Bottega or even vintage Bottega, I think Dragon Diffusion is a really good alternative if you're okay with sort of the more casual, artisanal, bohemian vibe. I think if you're looking for more of a luxury woven leather bag, then I would go with a vintage Bottega. Would I buy a brand new Bottega? Probably not. I mean, the price to me doesn't seem worth it. Thank you guys so much for watching. And if you found this interesting or informative, I would greatly appreciate a like or subscribe. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.